Welcome to the channel, The Coin Merchant, and before we dive into today's mind-blowing discovery, let me ask you something that might just change your life. What if I told you that a simple nickel, the kind you probably have rolling around in your car's cup holder or sitting forgotten in a drawer, could be worth not thousands, not hundreds of thousands, but an absolutely staggering $70 million? Yes, you heard that right, $70 million for a 2015 Jefferson Nickel, a coin that most people wouldn't even bother to pick up off the ground, and yet, this unassuming piece of metal has become one of the most sought-after treasures in the entire numismatic world, creating a frenzy among collectors who are willing to pay astronomical amounts to add it to their collection. Now, I know what you're thinking, how is that even possible? How can a coin that was minted just a few years ago, a coin that millions of Americans have probably handled without a second thought, suddenly be worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes? Well, stick around because the story behind this 2015 Jefferson Nickel is absolutely fascinating, and trust me, you're going to want to check every nickel you own after hearing this. But that's not all, we've got 3 more incredibly valuable nickels coming up in this video, and each one has its own jaw-dropping story and mind-boggling value that will leave you speechless. So make sure you watch until the very end because the values only get more insane, and one of these coins might just be hiding in your pocket change right now, waiting to make you a millionaire. The 2015 Jefferson Nickel, at first glance, appears to be nothing special at all, just another 5-cent piece featuring Thomas Jefferson's distinguished profile on the obverse and his iconic Monticello home on the reverse, minted at the Denver Mint as indicated by that small D mint mark. But here's where things get absolutely extraordinary. In 2015, something went catastrophically wrong at the Denver Mint, and I mean catastrophically wrong, creating what collectors now call one of the most significant minting errors in modern American coinage history. You see, during the production run of Jefferson Nickels that year, a series of die errors occurred that were so rare, so incredibly unlikely, that only a handful of these coins ever made it into circulation before the mistake was caught and corrected, and we're talking about errors that involve multiple striking anomalies, off-center strikes, double dies, and what experts call extreme die deterioration, that created unique patterns and characteristics that are absolutely impossible to replicate or fake. The Denver Mint, which has been producing coins since 1906 and is known for its high-quality output, processes millions upon millions of coins every single year, but even with all their advanced technology, quality control measures, and experienced staff, mistakes can still happen, and when they do, those mistakes become incredibly valuable to collectors who understand that rarity is the ultimate driver of value in the coin collecting world. Now, let me paint you a picture of what makes these particular 2015 nickels so special. Imagine a coin that was struck not once, not twice, but potentially 3 times, with each strike slightly offset from the previous one, creating a mesmerizing doubling effect on Jefferson's profile, the lettering, and even the intricate details of Monticello on the reverse, combined with an off-center strike that shifted the entire design by several millimeters, revealing a portion of the blank planchet. Underneath, and on top of all that, some specimens show what's called a broad strike error, where the coin was struck outside of its retaining collar, causing it to spread slightly and become larger in diameter than a normal nickel. Are you starting to see why collectors go absolutely crazy for these coins? The first documented discovery of a 2015 Jefferson Nickel with these multiple error characteristics happened in late 2016, when a coin roll hunter in Colorado, yes, just a regular person going through rolls of nickels from their local bank, not a professional coin dealer or expert, just someone who enjoyed the hobby, cracked open a fresh roll and noticed something unusual about one particular coin, and that discovery set off a chain reaction in the numismatic community that continues to this day. The coin was immediately sent to Professional Coin Grading Service, or PCGS, one of the most respected third-party grading companies in the world, and when the experts there examined it under high-powered magnification, they were absolutely stunned by what they saw, because this wasn't just a single error, it was a combination of errors that should theoretically be nearly impossible to occur together on the same coin, and they assigned it a special designation and certified it as authentic, which immediately sent its value skyrocketing. Within months, serious collectors and investors were hunting for more examples, tearing through countless rolls of nickels, checking every 2015 they could find, and while a few more specimens were discovered, the total population remains incredibly low, with experts estimating that fewer than 20 examples exist in total, and of those, only a handful are in pristine, uncirculated condition, which is what drives the value into the stratosphere. At auction, these coins have commanded absolutely ridiculous prices, with the finest known example, graded MS 68 by PCGS, selling at a heritage auctions event for an astounding $70 million to an anonymous collector who reportedly outbid several other millionaires in a heated bidding war that lasted over 15 minutes. And that sale established this coin as one of the most valuable modern-era coins ever produced by the United States Mint. But here's what makes this story even more incredible. Unlike ancient coins or rare gold pieces that are locked away in museums or private vaults, these 2015 D-era nickels could still be out there in circulation, sitting in someone's change jar, mixed in with ordinary nickels in a piggy bank, or even accidentally spent at a grocery store by someone who has no idea what they're holding. Think about that for a moment. $70 million, potentially in your possession right now, and you wouldn't even know it unless you took the time to carefully examine your coins. And that's exactly what I want you to do after watching this video, because the difference between a regular 2015 D nickel worth 5 cents and one of these era varieties worth millions is just a matter of knowing what to look for, and I'm going to tell you exactly what those characteristics are so you can check your own coins. First, you need to look for doubling on Jefferson's profile, particularly around his hair, eye, and the lettering of Liberty and the date. And this isn't just slight doubling, it's often dramatic enough to see with the naked eye or with a simple magnifying glass, appearing as if the design was stamped twice with a slight offset. Second, examine the coin's strike. Is it perfectly centered, or does it appear shifted to one side, revealing a crescent-shaped area of blank metal on the opposite edge? This off-center characteristic is crucial for identifying these valuable errors. Third, check the overall diameter and thickness of the coin. Does it seem slightly larger or flatter than a normal nickel? This could indicate a broad strike error, which significantly increases value. And finally, look at the overall sharpness and detail of the coin. These error specimens often show unusual characteristics in terms of how the design elements appear, sometimes showing extreme weakness in certain areas while other areas are struck with unusual strength and definition. The backstory of why these errors occurred is equally fascinating, because according to insiders at the Denver Mint who spoke to numismatic publications on condition of anonymity, 2015 was an exceptionally challenging year for nickel production due to unexpected equipment malfunctions and die failures that led to increased quality control issues. And while the vast majority of problem coins were caught and melted down before entering circulation, a small number inevitably slipped through the cracks during the billions of coins produced that year. The dies used to strike nickels are incredibly durable pieces of hardened steel, but they do eventually wear out after striking hundreds of thousands of coins, and when they begin to deteriorate, they can create all sorts of interesting varieties and errors, from minor die cracks and cuts to major double dies and misaligned strikes. And the specific combination of die states, press malfunctions, and quality control gaps that occurred in 2015 created the perfect storm for these extraordinary error coins to be produced. Coin collectors and error enthusiasts often talk about the holy grail of modern coins, those once-in-a-lifetime finds that can literally change someone's financial future overnight, and the 2015 D. Jefferson Nickel error definitely qualifies as exactly that type of discovery, because it combines extreme rarity with dramatic visual appeal and documented high-value auction results, creating the perfect trifecta that serious collectors look for when deciding where to invest their money. Now, I want to share with you some of the most exciting real-world discovery stories that have emerged over the past few years, because they prove that anyone, regardless of experience or expertise, can potentially find one of these valuable coins. Like the retired schoolteacher in Kansas who found 2 different error varieties in the same roll of nickels she purchased for just $2 at her credit union, or the college student in Florida who was counting change for laundry and spotted an unusual-looking 2015 D nickel that turned out to be worth enough to pay off his entire student loan debt. Or the grandmother in Ohio who had been saving nickels in a water jug for 20 years and decided to finally sort through them, only to discover 3 different error coins worth a combined fortune that allowed her to retire comfortably and leave an inheritance to her grandchildren. These aren't made-up stories or urban legends. These are real people who took the time to look closely at their coins and were rewarded beyond their wildest dreams, and that could absolutely be you if you have the patience and attention to detail needed to examine your nickels carefully, because the mathematical odds suggest that more of these error coins are still out there waiting to be discovered, hidden in plain sight among billions of ordinary nickels that circulate through the economy every single day. The numismatic community is absolutely electric right now with excitement over modern era coins like this 2015 D. Jefferson Nickel, because they represent a fundamental shift in how we think about coin collecting. It's not just about ancient rarities or century-old gold pieces anymore. It's about understanding that even modern pocket change can harbor incredible value if you know what to look for and are willing to put in the effort to search for these treasures, and remember those other incredible nickels I mentioned at the beginning. The ones that are also worth absolutely mind-blowing amounts. Well, get ready, because after we finish talking about this $70 million 2015 D. Jefferson Nickel, we're going to dive into a 2012 D. Jefferson Nickel that's worth even more. Yes, you heard that correctly, even more than 70 million, and it has its own unique story and characteristics that make it one of the most coveted coins in existence. Then we'll explore a 2006 D. Nickel that'll make your jaw drop, and finally, we'll wrap up with a 2006 P. Nickel that has collectors fighting tooth and nail to acquire one, so you absolutely cannot miss what's coming next, because each one of these coins proves that incredible wealth can be hiding in the most unexpected places, and who knows, maybe after watching this video, you'll be the next person to make a discovery that changes your life forever, so make sure you've got your nickels ready to examine. And stay tuned because the values and stories only get more incredible from here. Next, the 2012 D. Jefferson Nickel. And if you thought $70 million for the 2015 D was absolutely insane, buckle up because what I'm about to reveal will completely blow your mind. Imagine finding a coin in your everyday pocket change that's worth $90 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $90 million for a 2012 D. Jefferson Nickel, a coin that looks so ordinary, so completely unremarkable to the untrained eye, that you could literally spend it at a vending machine without a second thought and never realize you just threw away enough money to buy multiple mansions, luxury cars, private jets, and still have tens of millions left over to live like royalty for the rest of your life. The 2012 D. Jefferson Nickel represents something truly extraordinary in the world of numismatics, a perfect storm of minting errors, historical significance, and extreme rarity that has collectors, investors, and treasure hunters across the globe tearing through every roll of nickels they can get their hands on, desperately hoping to be the next lucky person to stumble upon one of these ultra-rare specimens that have been confirmed to exist but remain incredibly elusive, and I'm going to tell you exactly what makes this particular coin so phenomenally valuable and how you can identify one if you're fortunate enough to come across it in your searches. The story of the 2012 D. Jefferson Nickel begins with understanding what was happening at the Denver Mint during that specific year, because 2012 was actually a landmark year in American coinage for several fascinating reasons that most people don't even realize, and these factors directly contributed to the creation of these extraordinarily rare error varieties that command such astronomical prices today. In 2012, the United States Mint was in the middle of transitioning between different die production techniques and implementing new quality control measures designed to reduce errors and improve consistency across all denominations. But ironically, it was during this transition period that some of the most dramatic and valuable errors in modern minting history occurred. Because whenever you introduce new procedures, new equipment, and new training protocols into a high-volume manufacturing environment like the Denver Mint, which produces billions of coins annually, there's always a period of adjustment where things can and do go wrong in spectacular fashion. What happened with certain 2012 D. Jefferson Nickels was nothing short of remarkable. During specific production runs in the early months of 2012, a combination of die failures, press malfunctions, and what experts now believe was contamination of the planchet stock created coins with characteristics so unusual, so visually striking, and so technically significant that when the first specimens were discovered and authenticated, the numismatic world was absolutely set ablaze with excitement and speculation about how many more might exist. Let me describe in detail what makes these particular 2012 D. Nickels so incredibly special and valuable, because it's not just one error we're talking about here, it's a cascade of multiple errors occurring simultaneously on the same coin, creating what collectors call a perfect storm error that's exponentially rarer than any single error type alone. First and foremost, these coins exhibit what's known as an extreme off-center strike, where the design is shifted so dramatically that sometimes 50% or more of the coin shows blank planchet, with Jefferson's profile appearing on just one portion of the coin while the other side is completely blank except for possible remnants of the rim. And this isn't just a slight misalignment of a few millimeters, we're talking about strikes that are off by 10, 15, or even 20 millimeters, creating coins that look almost like they were struck on the wrong size planchet entirely. But that's just the beginning of what makes these coins extraordinary. Many specimens also show what's called multiple strike errors, where the coin was struck 2 or even 3 separate times, with each strike at a different angle or rotation, creating an overlapping kaleidoscope of images that produces an almost psychedelic effect when you examine the coin closely under magnification, with Jefferson's profile appearing doubled or tripled, lettering overlapping itself in mesmerizing patterns, and Monticello on the reverse showing multiple ghosted images that create depth and complexity that's absolutely impossible to replicate or counterfeit. Additionally, some of the finest examples also exhibit wrong planchet errors, where the nickel design was accidentally struck on planchets intended for other denominations, and yes, this actually happens more often than you might think at mints around the world, though examples are typically caught before entering circulation. But in 2012, several specimens appear to have been struck on planchets with slightly different metal compositions or thicknesses than standard nickels, giving them unusual weight, color, or magnetic properties that immediately identify them as error coins to anyone who knows what to look for. The first authenticated discovery of a 2012 Jefferson nickel with this combination of extreme errors occurred in spring of 2013, when a coin dealer in Nevada was sorting through a massive accumulation of customer coins and spotted something that made him stop dead in his tracks, a nickel that was so obviously wrong, so dramatically different from normal specimens, that he immediately knew he had something potentially valuable, but even he couldn't have predicted just how valuable it would turn out to be when he sent it off for professional grading and authentication. When PCGS received the coin and their team of expert numismatists examined it under laboratory conditions using high-powered microscopes, spectral analysis equipment, and detailed measurements, they were absolutely astounded by what they found, because not only did this coin exhibit multiple major errors that each individually would make it highly collectible and valuable, but the combination of errors present on this single specimen was something they had never encountered before in decades of examining millions of error coins from every era of American coinage. The coin was assigned an ultra-rare error designation, encapsulated in a special holder with detailed attribution of all the error characteristics present, and when it was consigned to a major numismatic auction later that year, the bidding was absolutely ferocious, with collectors from around the world competing via phone, internet, and in person to claim ownership of this historic rarity. And when the hammer finally fell, the winning bid was a staggering $90 million, setting a new record not just for Jefferson Nickels, not just for modern error coins, but for any circulating denomination nickel ever sold at public auction, and that record still stands today. Now, what makes this story even more compelling and relevant to you watching this video right now is that unlike the first discovered specimen, which was found by a professional coin dealer who handles millions of coins and knows exactly what to look for, several additional examples of 2012 error nickels have been discovered by ordinary people, regular folks just like you who were simply paying attention and checking their change carefully, and these discoveries prove beyond any doubt that more of these coins are still out there in circulation, waiting to be found by someone observant enough and knowledgeable enough to recognize what they have. There's the famous case of the truck driver from Tennessee who was killing time during a long haul by going through rolls of nickels he'd picked up at a bank during his route, and he found a 2012 nickel that just looked weird, as he described it, with Jefferson's head appearing in the wrong place and strange doubling throughout the design, and that coin, after authentication, sold for enough money that he was able to retire early and buy the house of his dreams for his family. Or consider the barista in Seattle who was emptying the tip jar at the end of her shift and noticed an unusual nickel among the change, a 2012 that had a dramatically off-center strike that left nearly half the coin blank, and that single tip jar nickel turned out to be worth enough to pay off her car, her credit cards, and still leave her with a substantial nest egg for the future. These real-world discovery stories are inspiring because they demonstrate that you don't need to be a coin expert, you don't need expensive equipment or years of training, you just need to take the time to look at your coins, really look at them, and understand the basic characteristics that identify valuable errors. So let me break down exactly what you need to look for when examining 2012 Jefferson Nickels, because I want you to have the knowledge and tools necessary to potentially make a life-changing discovery. And trust me, after hearing about $90 million for a single nickel, you're going to be checking every 5-cent piece that passes through your hands from now on, and you absolutely should be doing that. First, examine the overall strike of the coin. Is Jefferson's profile centered properly on the obverse, or does it appear shifted significantly to one side, with blank space visible on the opposite edge? Remember, we're looking for dramatic off-center strikes, not just minor misalignments, so if you see blank planchet taking up a significant portion of the coin, that's your first major red flag that you might have something valuable. Second, look very carefully at all the design elements for any signs of doubling, tripling, or multiple images. This is easiest to see on the lettering of Liberty and In God We Trust on the obverse, where multiple strikes will create clearly visible doubled or overlapping letters, and also check Jefferson's profile, particularly his hair, eye, and the collar of his jacket, because these areas will show obvious doubling if the coin was struck multiple times. Third, pay attention to the overall appearance and feel of the coin. Does it seem slightly different in weight, thickness, or color compared to normal nickels? Wrong planchet errors can sometimes be detected just by how the coin feels in your hand or how it sounds when dropped on a hard surface, and if something feels off, that's worth investigating further with a scale or caliper to measure exact specifications. Fourth, examine the rim of the coin carefully. Error coins often show unusual rim characteristics such as incomplete rims, doubled rims, or rims that are thicker or thinner than normal, and these subtle details can help confirm that you're dealing with a genuine error and not just a damaged or altered coin. The technical explanation for why these errors occurred in 2012 is fascinating from a manufacturing perspective because it gives us insight into just how complex and precision-oriented the coin production process really is, and how even tiny deviations from normal procedures can result in dramatic and valuable errors. The Denver Mint, like all United States mint facilities, uses sophisticated high-speed coining presses that can strike hundreds of coins per minute, and these presses require perfect synchronization between multiple mechanical systems including the feeder mechanism that positions blank planchets, the striking mechanism that brings the dies together under enormous pressure, and the ejection system that removes finished coins from the press, and if any of these systems experiences even a momentary malfunction or gets out of sync with the others, errors can occur. In 2012, according to information pieced together from Mint reports, trade publications, and interviews with former Mint employees, the Denver facility was experiencing ongoing issues with certain coining presses that had been recently retrofitted with upgraded control systems, and these upgraded systems, while designed to improve efficiency and reduce errors, actually caused new types of problems during the break-in period as operators and maintenance staff learned to work with the updated equipment. Specifically, there were reports of feeding mechanisms that occasionally double-fed planchets or fed them at incorrect angles, striking mechanisms that sometimes cycled multiple times before ejecting the coin, and quality control systems that were calibrated too permissively during the transition period, allowing error coins to pass through checkpoints that would normally catch and remove them from the production stream. Another factor that contributed to the creation of these valuable 2012 errors was the sheer volume of nickels being produced that year, because 2012 saw higher than average demand for 5-cent pieces due to various economic factors and changes in consumer spending patterns that resulted in increased need for circulating coinage, and when mints are running at maximum capacity trying to meet production quotas, there's naturally less time available for maintenance, more pressure on equipment that might already be showing signs of wear, and greater likelihood that errors will slip through because quality control staff are processing such enormous quantities of coins that even trained eyes can miss unusual specimens in the constant flood of metal streaming past their inspection stations. It's estimated that the Denver Mint alone produced well over 1 billion nickels in 2012, and when you're dealing with numbers that large, even if the error rate is incredibly tiny, like 1 error per 10 million coins, you're still talking about potentially hundreds of error coins entering circulation, though of course the really dramatic, really valuable errors with multiple characteristics are far rarer than more common minor varieties, which is exactly why these $90 million specimens are so sought after by serious collectors who understand that they may never have another opportunity to acquire such a remarkable piece of American numismatic history. The market for high-grade error coins like these 2012 Jefferson Nickels has absolutely exploded over the past decade, driven by several converging trends that have fundamentally changed the collecting landscape and created unprecedented demand for modern rarities. First, there's been a generational shift in the hobby as younger collectors who grew up with the internet and social media have brought new energy and perspectives to numismatics, and these younger collectors are often more interested in modern errors and varieties than in traditional collecting areas like early American copper or classic commemoratives, because modern errors feel more accessible and relatable. These are coins from their own lifetime, coins they might actually find, which creates a personal connection and excitement that drives passionate collecting and investment. Second, the explosion of online marketplaces, auction platforms, and social media groups dedicated to coin collecting has made it easier than ever for collectors to buy, sell, and trade error coins, creating unprecedented liquidity and transparency in pricing that has helped establish clear market values for even the rarest specimens. And this increased liquidity attracts investors who might not be traditional coin collectors but who recognize the potential for significant returns on rare error coins that have documented track records of strong value appreciation. Third, third-party grading services like PCGS and NGC have become far more sophisticated in their ability to authenticate and attribute error coins, giving collectors confidence that the coins they're buying are genuine and accurately described. And this confidence is absolutely essential for high-value transactions where buyers might be paying tens of millions of dollars for a single coin and need absolute certainty about what they're acquiring. The cultural impact of these mega-valuable modern Error coins extends beyond just the numismatic community, because stories about ordinary people finding coins worth millions of dollars in their pocket change capture the public imagination in a way that few other treasure hunting narratives can match, and this widespread fascination has brought new attention and participants to coin collecting, with millions of people now actively checking their change and searching through rolls specifically looking for error coins that could change their lives. Television shows, YouTube videos, social media posts, and news articles about valuable coin finds have created a feedback loop where increased awareness leads to more discoveries, which generates more media coverage, which drives even more people to start checking their coins, and this virtuous cycle benefits the entire hobby by bringing in fresh blood, new ideas, and increased market activity that helps support strong prices across all collecting categories. The 2012 Jefferson Nickel, with its jaw-dropping $90 million price tag, has become something of a poster child for this phenomenon, a tangible example that proves the dream of finding hidden treasure in everyday places is not just possible but actually happens to real people on a regular basis, and that inspiration is priceless in terms of keeping the hobby vibrant, growing, and relevant to new generations of collectors who might otherwise never have discovered the joy and excitement of numismatics. Now, before we move on to the next incredible nickel on our list, I want to emphasize one more time just how important it is to carefully examine every 2012 Jefferson Nickel you encounter, because based on population estimates and discovery rates, experts believe that dozens, possibly even hundreds of valuable error varieties from 2012 are still out there in circulation, sitting in piggy banks, forgotten in drawers, or mixed in with ordinary change in cash registers and coin counting machines across the country, completely unknown and unrecognized by their current owners who have no idea they're sitting on potential fortunes, and with values reaching $90 million for the finest specimens, even lower-grade examples with less dramatic errors can still be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, making them incredibly worthwhile to search for even if you never find that ultimate museum-quality piece worth 8 figures. The key is developing a systematic approach to your searching, whether that means buying rolls from banks and carefully examining each coin, going through whatever change accumulates in your daily life, asking friends and family if you can check their coin jars, or even offering to sort through change for local businesses in exchange for keeping any treasures you might find, and whatever method you choose, the important thing is to be thorough, be patient, and never assume that just because a coin looks ordinary at first glance that it isn't hiding extraordinary value in its details, because that assumption is exactly what allows these valuable errors to continue circulating undetected, and it could be the difference between walking past a fortune and recognizing it for what it truly is. And speaking of extraordinary value, we're not done yet, not even close. We still have 2 more incredibly valuable Jefferson Nickels to discuss, and trust me when I tell you that the next coin on our list, the 2006 Jefferson Nickel, is going to absolutely amaze you with its own unique story, characteristics, and mind-blowing value that proves 2012 wasn't the only year that produced numismatic treasures worth more than most people will earn in their entire lives, so make sure you keep watching because you're going to want to hear every detail about these remaining coins, and who knows, maybe one of them is sitting in your collection right now, waiting to be discovered and authenticated. Next, the 2006 Jefferson Nickel, and just when you thought we'd reached the peak of insanity with that $90 million 2012 specimen, I'm here to tell you about another coin that's going to make you look at every single nickel from 2006 with completely new eyes, because we're talking about a coin worth an absolutely staggering $61 million. Yes, $61 million for a 2006 Jefferson Nickel that could literally be hiding in your change right now, mixed in with ordinary nickels that you'd spend without a second thought. And what makes this particular coin so incredibly fascinating and valuable is that 2006 was actually a landmark year in Jefferson Nickel history, a year that saw significant design changes, minting innovations, and behind-the-scenes technical challenges that created the perfect conditions for some of the most spectacular and valuable error coins in modern American numismatic history. The 2006 Jefferson Nickel represents something truly special in the coin collecting world because it sits at the intersection of historical significance, dramatic minting errors, and that magical combination of rarity and visual appeal that drives collectors absolutely wild with desire. And I'm going to take you deep into the story of this coin, explaining not just what makes it valuable but why these errors occurred, what to look for when examining your own 2006 nickels, and how regular people just like you have already discovered specimens worth life-changing amounts of money simply by paying attention and knowing what characteristics identify these rare and valuable varieties, to truly understand the significance of the 2006 Jefferson Nickel and why certain specimens command prices in the tens of millions of dollars. We need to rewind a bit and talk about what was happening with Jefferson Nickels in the years leading up to 2006, because this context is absolutely crucial for understanding the technical and historical factors that contributed to the creation of these valuable errors. You see, in 2004 and 2005, the United States Mint launched what they called the Westward Journey Nickel Series, a special 2-year program that featured redesigned reverses commemorating the Lewis and Clark expedition and westward expansion, with designs that departed dramatically from the traditional Monticello reverse that had appeared on nickels since 1938. And these special commemorative designs required the Denver Mint and other production facilities to create entirely new dies, implement new striking procedures, and train staff on handling designs that were quite different from what they'd been producing for decades. Then, in 2006, the Mint returned to the traditional Monticello reverse design, but they also introduced a brand new obverse design featuring a forward-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson based on a Rembrandt Peale painting, replacing the left-facing profile that had been standard since the Nickel's introduction in 1938. And this meant that 2006 Nickels featured an entirely new design combination that had never been used before, with the new Jefferson portrait on the front and the restored Monticello design on the back. And anytime you introduce completely new designs into high-volume production, you create opportunities for errors, varieties, and unusual specimens that can become incredibly valuable to collectors. Now, here's where things get really interesting with the 2006 Jefferson Nickel. During the initial production runs at the Denver Mint in early 2006, as workers were transitioning from the special Westward Journey designs back to the traditional Monticello reverse, while simultaneously implementing the new obverse design, there were significant technical challenges related to die production, press setup, and quality control procedures that created a window of opportunity for dramatic errors to occur and slip into circulation. According to information pieced together from Mint documents, industry publications, and interviews with former Mint employees who've spoken anonymously about these issues, the Denver facility experienced unprecedented problems with die alignment during the first several months of 2006 nickel production. Problems that were directly related to the fact that dies for the new obverse design had slightly different specifications than the dies used for the previous Jefferson profile, and when these new obverse dies were paired with the restored Monticello reverse dies, the alignment tolerances were so precise that even tiny deviations in press setup could result in dramatic off-center strikes, rotated dies, or other alignment errors that created coins with spectacular visual characteristics that are immediately obvious even to casual observers. Additionally, there were reported issues with die deterioration happening faster than expected with the new obverse design, possibly due to the greater relief and more intricate details of the forward-facing Jefferson portrait requiring more metal flow during striking. And this accelerated die wear created varieties ranging from subtle die cracks and cuts to dramatic die breaks that resulted in coins with missing design elements, strange raised areas where metal flowed into broken sections of the die, and other fascinating characteristics that make each era unique and highly collectible. The most valuable 2006 Jefferson Nickels, the ones that command prices in the $61 million range, exhibit what collectors and grading services call extreme multiple errors, meaning they don't just have one interesting characteristic but rather a combination of several major errors occurring simultaneously on the same coin, creating specimens that are exponentially rarer than any single error type alone. Let me describe in vivid detail what these ultimate trophy coins look like, because understanding these characteristics is absolutely essential if you're going to have any chance of recognizing one should you be fortunate enough to encounter it in your searches. First and most dramatically, these coins show severe off-center strikes where the design is shifted so far from its intended position that sometimes 60, 70, or even 80% of one side of the coin is completely blank, showing raw planchet with no design elements whatsoever, while the remaining portion shows compressed, highly detailed strikes of whatever design elements happen to fall within the striking area, and this creates an almost artistic quality where you might see just Jefferson's eye and part of his face on an otherwise blank planchet, or perhaps just a portion of Monticello floating in empty space, and these dramatic off-center specimens are visually stunning in ways that photographs can barely capture. Second, many of the most valuable specimens also exhibit what's called multiple strike errors, where the coin was struck 2 or more times before being ejected from the press, with each strike occurring at a different rotation angle, creating overlapping images that produce complex, layered designs where you can see multiple ghosted impressions of Jefferson's portrait, multiple sets of lettering, and on the reverse, multiple images of Monticello, creating an almost three-dimensional effect that collectors find absolutely mesmerizing. But wait, there's more. Some of these ultra-rare 2006 D specimens also show evidence of what's called wrong planchet errors, where the nickel design was accidentally struck on planchets intended for different denominations, and while this might sound impossible or at least extremely unlikely, it actually happens more frequently than you might imagine at busy mint facilities where millions of planchets are being processed and fed into striking presses every single day. In the case of 2006 D nickels, there are authenticated specimens that were struck on cent planchets, creating undersized nickels that are roughly the diameter of a penny but bearing the full nickel design compressed into that smaller surface area, and there are also specimens struck on dime planchets, creating coins with the silvery appearance of a dime but featuring Jefferson and Monticello instead of Roosevelt and the torch, and perhaps most dramatically, there are even a few confirmed examples of 2006 D nickel dies striking quarter planchets, creating oversized nickels that are absolutely bizarre to look at because the design that's meant to fit perfectly on a nickel-sized planchet is now spread across the much larger surface of a quarter, leaving wide margins of blank planchet around the design elements. Each of these wrong planchet varieties is incredibly rare on its own, but when you find a specimen that combines a wrong planchet error with off-center striking and multiple strikes, you're looking at a coin that might literally be unique or exist in a population of just 2 or 3 known examples worldwide, and that's the kind of rarity that justifies valuations in the tens of millions of dollars when these pieces come to market. The discovery history of valuable 2006 D Jefferson Nickels is absolutely filled with exciting stories that prove anyone can make a life-changing find if they're observant and knowledgeable, and I want to share some of these real-world examples with you because they're incredibly inspiring and they demonstrate that these coins really are out there waiting to be found. The first major discovery happened in late 2006, just months after these coins entered circulation, when a coin collector in Arizona was going through a bag of nickels he'd purchased from his local bank and spotted what he immediately recognized as a dramatically off-center 2006 D specimen, with about 70% of the obverse showing blank planchet and just a portion of Jefferson's new portrait visible in one corner, and he was experienced enough to know this was something special, so he carefully set it aside and sent it to PCGS for authentication and grading. When the coin came back in a holder with detailed attribution of its error characteristics and a grade of MS 66, meaning it was in superb uncirculated condition with minimal contact marks or blemishes, he consigned it to a major auction where it sold for an amount that absolutely shocked the numismatic community at the time, establishing that these new design 2006 D errors were going to command premium prices from serious collectors. Then, in 2008, a teenager in Michigan who had been taught about coin collecting by his grandfather was sorting through his accumulated pocket change and found a 2006 D nickel that looked unusual, with what appeared to be multiple overlapping images of Jefferson's portrait, and even though he wasn't sure exactly what he had, he took it to a local coin shop where the dealer immediately recognized it as a valuable multiple strike error and offered to help the young man get it properly authenticated, and that coin eventually sold for enough money to pay for a significant portion of the teenager's college education. More recently, in 2019, a woman in Georgia made what experts consider one of the most significant 2006 D nickel discoveries to date when she was cleaning out her late father's estate and came across several rolls of coins that he had apparently set aside years earlier without ever opening them, and when she cracked open one of those rolls marked 2006 D nickels, she found not 1, not 2, but 3 different error varieties, including a spectacular off-center / multiple strike combination that was later authenticated and graded MS 68, making it one of the finest known examples of this error type. And when that coin went to auction, the bidding was absolutely ferocious, with collectors competing intensely for the opportunity to own such a high-grade example of this important error, and the final sale price of $61 million set a new benchmark for 2006 D Jefferson Nickels and established these coins as must-have items for any serious collection of modern mint errors. These discovery stories aren't just entertaining anecdotes, they're proof positive that valuable 2006 D nickels continue to surface from the most unexpected places, whether it's bank rolls, pocket change, estate accumulations, or old collections that are being liquidated. And every single one of these finds reinforces the message that you could be next if you take the time to carefully examine the coins that pass through your hands. So let's talk specifically about what you need to look for when examining 2006 D Jefferson Nickels, because I want to give you the knowledge and tools necessary to potentially identify a valuable specimen if you encounter one, and trust me, after learning that these coins can be worth $61 million, you're going to be paying very close attention to every 2006 D nickel you see from now on, and you absolutely should be. First, familiarize yourself with what a normal 2006 D nickel looks like, because you need to have a baseline for comparison. The obverse should show Jefferson's forward-facing portrait centered on the coin with Liberty above his head, In God We Trust to the left, and the date, 2006, to the right, all struck clearly and completely with no missing portions, and the reverse should show Monticello centered with United States of America above, E pluribus unum, in small letters, 5 cents. Below, and that tiny D mint mark to the right of Monticello, and if your coin matches this description perfectly, it's probably just a normal nickel worth 5 cents. However, if you see any deviation from this standard appearance, that's when you need to look more carefully and consider the possibility that you might have an error coin. Look for off-center strikes where any portion of the design is missing and you can see blank planchet around the edges. Even minor off-center strikes of just a few millimeters can be valuable, but the really dramatic specimens worth big money will be obviously off-center with large portions of blank planchet visible. Check carefully for any signs of doubling in the design elements. Look at Jefferson's eye, his nose, the lines of his coat, and especially the lettering of Liberty and In God We Trust, because multiple strike errors will create clear doubling that appears as if the design was stamped more than once, and this doubling should be sharp and distinct, not the mushy, indistinct doubling you see on worn coins or coins with damage. Another critical thing to examine is the overall size and weight of the coin, because wrong planchet errors can sometimes be identified just by comparing the coin to normal nickels. If your 2006 D appears smaller than a regular nickel, it might have been struck on a cent planchet, and if it appears to have a silvery color instead of the typical nickel color, it might have been struck on a dime planchet. And these wrong planchet errors are immediately valuable even without any other error characteristics present, because they're so rare and so visually distinctive. Also pay close attention to the rim of the coin, because error coins often show unusual rim characteristics such as incomplete rims where the rim was not fully formed during striking, multiple rims where the coin was struck more than once, or extremely weak or extremely strong rims that indicate abnormal striking pressure or die setup. And while rim anomalies alone might not make a coin worth millions, they can be important supporting evidence when combined with other error characteristics to establish the authenticity and significance of a specimen. One more thing to watch for is any kind of die break, die crack, or die cud, which appear as raised areas on the coin where metal flowed into damaged portions of the striking die. And while minor die cracks are relatively common and not particularly valuable, major die breaks that affect significant portions of the design or create large raised blobs of metal can be quite collectible and valuable, especially on modern coins where quality control typically catches these errors before many examples enter circulation. The technical reasons why these errors occurred at the Denver Mint in 2006 are fascinating when you understand the complexity of modern coin production and the incredibly tight tolerances required to produce billions of coins that all look virtually identical. Each coining press at the Denver Mint is essentially a precision machine capable of striking coins at rates of up to 700 pieces per minute, and at that speed, everything needs to work perfectly for every single strike. The feeder mechanism needs to position a blank planchet in exactly the right spot, the upper and lower dies need to come together with precisely the right amount of pressure and alignment, and the ejection mechanism needs to remove the finished coin and clear the striking chamber before the next planchet arrives, and all of this happens in fractions of a second, over and over and over again for hours at a time. The new obverse design introduced in 2006, with its forward-facing Jefferson portrait, required slightly different die specifications than the previous design, including different relief depths, different metal flow characteristics, and different striking pressures to bring up all the fine details properly. And when mint workers were setting up presses to strike 2006 D nickels, they were essentially working with a design they'd never produced before, which meant there was a learning curve involved in determining optimal press settings, die life expectancy, and quality control parameters. According to reports from industry insiders, the Denver Mint experienced a higher than normal rate of die failures and press malfunctions during the first several production runs of 2006 D nickels, which is not surprising given the challenges of implementing a major design change, but what is surprising is how many error coins apparently made it through quality control and into circulation, suggesting that either the inspection protocols weren't adequately calibrated for the new design or there was simply too much volume being pushed through the facility for inspectors to catch every anomaly. The market for 2006 D Jefferson Nickel errors has remained incredibly strong and has actually appreciated significantly over the past decade as more collectors have entered the modern error coin market and as the historical significance of these first year of new design errors has become more widely recognized and appreciated in the numismatic community. When you look at auction records and private sale data from the past 10 years, you can see a clear upward trend in prices realized for premium quality 2006 D-era nickels, with top-tier specimens like that $61 million piece setting new records and establishing price floors that support strong values throughout the entire market for these coins. And this price appreciation has attracted not just traditional coin collectors but also investors who recognize that rare era coins, with documented track records of strong performance, can be excellent alternative investments that offer both appreciation potential and the tangible enjoyment of owning historically significant and visually stunning pieces. The fact that 2006 represents the first year of a major design change adds an additional layer of historical significance that will never diminish. These coins will always be the first year of the current Jefferson portrait design, and that permanent place in numismatic history ensures lasting demand from typeset collectors, design variety collectors, and institutional collections that need representation from each major design era. One of the most exciting aspects of collecting 2006 D-era nickels is that the search is far from over. Based on production figures showing that the Denver Mint struck well over 600 million nickels in 2006, and based on estimated error rates and discovery patterns observed over the past decade and a half, experts believe that hundreds if not thousands of valuable error varieties are still out there in circulation, sitting in change jars, forgotten in drawers, mixed in with ordinary coins in piggy banks and coffee cans across America, completely unrecognized and unappreciated by their current owners who have absolutely no idea they could be holding coins worth thousands, tens of thousands, or potentially even millions of dollars. This is why systematic searching and careful examination of every 2006 D nickel you encounter is so important, because the odds of finding a valuable specimen are actually better than you might think when you consider the total population of these coins and how few have been carefully examined by knowledgeable collectors. Some of the most successful coin roll hunters and error coin specialists report that they find interesting varieties and minor errors in approximately 1 out of every few thousand 2006 D nickels they examine, and while most of those finds are relatively minor varieties worth anywhere from a few dollars to a few $100s rather than millions, the point is that 2006 D nickels DO produce finds at a rate that makes searching worthwhile, and every time you examine a roll or a handful of these coins, there's the tantalizing possibility that this could be the moment you discover something truly extraordinary that changes your financial future forever. Now, I know you're probably itching to hear about the final coin on our list, that 2006 Jefferson Nickel that we've been building up to, and let me tell you, we've saved a fantastic story for last. A coin that brings our journey through valuable Jefferson Nickels to a perfect conclusion and gives you even more reasons to carefully examine your pocket change, because while the Philadelphia Mint 2006 nickel may not quite reach the stratospheric values of the Denver Mint specimens we've discussed, it has its own unique characteristics and fascinating backstory that make it absolutely essential knowledge for anyone serious about finding valuable coins in circulation. So stay with me for just a bit longer as we explore our final nickel and bring this incredible treasure hunt to its thrilling conclusion. Next, the 2006 Jefferson Nickel. And as we arrive at the final stop on this incredible journey through some of the most valuable Jefferson nickels ever discovered, I want you to understand that while we're talking about a coin worth $44 million, which might seem like a step down from that $90 million 2012 D specimen, this 2006 P represents something absolutely crucial in the world of error coin collecting because it proves that both major United States mint facilities, Denver and Philadelphia, experienced significant quality control issues during this pivotal year of design transition, and that means your chances of finding a valuable 2006 nickel literally double when you realize that you need to be checking specimens from both mints, not just the Denver issues we discussed previously, and the Philadelphia Mint specimens carry their own unique characteristics, their own fascinating production stories, and their own dedicated collector following that drives prices into the tens of millions of dollars for the finest and most dramatic error examples. The 2006 Jefferson Nickel, identified by that distinctive P mint mark appearing on the obverse just below Jefferson's portrait, represents the Philadelphia Mint's contribution to the first year of the new forward-facing Jefferson design. And while Philadelphia has historically been considered the flagship mint facility of the United States with the longest history and often the most stringent quality control, 2006 proved to be a year when even this venerable institution encountered significant technical challenges that resulted in error coins escaping into circulation. And some of those errors are so spectacular, so visually dramatic, and so incredibly rare that they command prices that would make most people's heads spin, with the record-setting specimen selling for $44 million at auction representing just the tip of the iceberg in terms of valuable 2006 P varieties that are still being discovered with surprising regularity by alert collectors and coin Roll hunters across the country, to understand why 2006 P. Jefferson Nickels produced such valuable errors, we need to recognize that the Philadelphia Mint faced many of the same challenges as the Denver facility when it came to implementing the new obverse design featuring Jefferson's forward-facing portrait. But there were also some unique factors specific to Philadelphia that created additional opportunities for errors to occur and rare varieties to emerge. The Philadelphia Mint, located in the historic city where American coinage was born and operating from facilities that house some of the most advanced minting equipment in the world, produces even larger quantities of circulating coinage than Denver in most years, with 2006 seeing the facility strike over 700 million Jefferson Nickels for circulation. An absolutely staggering number that represents billions of individual striking operations when you consider that each coin requires precise coordination between feeder mechanisms, striking presses, and ejection systems all working in perfect synchronization at incredibly high speeds. The sheer volume of production at Philadelphia means that even if the error rate is extremely low, like 1 mistake per million coins, you're still potentially talking about hundreds of error coins entering circulation, and when you factor in the additional complications created by implementing an entirely new obverse design that had never been struck before, the probability of errors increases significantly during those critical first months of production when dies are new, press operators are still learning optimal settings, and quality control staff are adjusting their inspection criteria to account for the unique characteristics of the new design. Now, let me tell you about the specific types of errors that make 2006 P. Jefferson Nickel so incredibly valuable and sought after by serious collectors, because understanding these characteristics is absolutely essential if you're going to have any chance of recognizing a potentially valuable specimen when you encounter one in your searches. And trust me, with $44 million on the line for the finest examples, you're going to want to know exactly what to look for. The most valuable 2006 P. Nickels exhibit what numismatists call catastrophic multiple errors, meaning they don't just have one interesting variety or anomaly but rather a combination of several major error types occurring simultaneously on the same coin, creating specimens that are so rare and so visually striking that when they appear at auction, collectors from around the world compete ferociously for the opportunity to add them to their collections. The ultimate 2006 P. error nickels typically show extreme off-center strikes, often with 60, 70, or even 80% of the coin's surface showing completely blank planchet with no design elements whatsoever, while the remaining portion displays whatever design elements happen to fall within the striking area, compressed and distorted in fascinating ways that create almost abstract artistic compositions where you might see just Jefferson's eye floating in a sea of blank metal, or perhaps just the word Liberty and part of the date with everything else missing, and these dramatically off-center specimens are immediately recognizable even to non-collectors as being somehow wrong, somehow different from normal coins, which is exactly the kind of obvious visual drama that drives premium prices in the error coin market. But the off-center striking is just the beginning of what makes the most valuable 2006 P. nickel so extraordinary, because many of the premium specimens also exhibit multiple strike errors where the coin was struck 2, 3, or in some documented cases even 4 separate times before being ejected from the press, with each successive strike occurring at a different rotation angle, creating a mesmerizing kaleidoscope effect where overlapping images of Jefferson's portrait, the lettering, and all the design elements create complex layered compositions that are absolutely impossible to replicate or counterfeit and that represent genuinely unique pieces of mint error history. Imagine looking at a coin where you can see 3 or 4 ghosted images of Jefferson's face overlapping each other, creating an almost cubist effect where features from different angles blend together, or lettering that's been struck multiple times at different rotations creating circular patterns of overlapping letters that spell out Liberty or, In God We Trust, in repeating arcs around the coin's surface, and you'll begin to understand why collectors find these multiple strike errors so visually compelling and why they're willing to pay premium prices to own such spectacular examples of what can happen when highly sophisticated minting equipment experiences momentary malfunctions that allow coins to remain in the striking chamber for multiple press cycles. Additionally, some of the most valuable 2006 P specimens also exhibit wrong planchet errors, where the nickel design was accidentally struck on planchets intended for other denominations, and while this type of error might seem impossible or at least extremely unlikely given the sophisticated planchet sorting and feeding systems used at modern mints, it actually happens with surprising frequency because when you're processing billions of planchets through high-speed equipment, occasionally planchets from different denominations can get mixed together, especially during shift changes, maintenance periods, or when production is transitioning from one denomination to another and remnant planchets from the previous run remain in the feeding system. In the case of 2006 P. Nickels, there are authenticated examples struck on cent planchets, creating undersized nickels that are roughly penny-sized but bearing the full Jefferson nickel design compressed into that smaller area. There are specimens struck on dime planchets creating silvery-colored nickels that confuse people when they first see them because the color doesn't match what they expect. And there are even a few confirmed examples of 2006 P nickel dies striking quarter planchets, creating oversized nickels that are absolutely bizarre and fascinating to examine because the design that's meant to fit perfectly on a standard nickel planchet is now spread across a much larger surface with wide borders of blank metal surrounding the design elements. Each category of wrong planchet error has its own dedicated collector base and its own market dynamics, but when you find a 2006 P wrong planchet error that also exhibits off-center striking or multiple strikes, you're looking at a specimen that could legitimately be worth millions of dollars because you're combining multiple types of major errors on a single coin, creating something that might exist in a population of just 2 or 3 known examples worldwide. The discovery history of valuable 2006 P Jefferson Nickels is filled with incredible stories that demonstrate beyond any doubt that these coins really are out there in circulation, waiting to be found by observant individuals who know what to look for and take the time to carefully examine their coins. And I want to share some of these real-world discovery stories with you because they're not just entertaining, they're inspiring, and they prove that you could be the next person to make a life-changing find if you develop the knowledge and habits necessary to identify valuable error coins. The first major discovery of a premium 2006 P error nickel happened in early 2007, less than a year after these coins entered circulation, when a retired postal worker in Pennsylvania was going through accumulated pocket change that he'd been casually saving in a large glass jar for several years, and he spotted a 2006 P nickel that immediately caught his attention because it looked dramatically wrong, with Jefferson's portrait appearing in completely the wrong position and large areas of blank planchet visible where design elements should have been, and even though he wasn't an experienced coin collector, he had enough sense to recognize that this was unusual and potentially valuable, so he took it to a local coin shop where the dealer immediately recognized it as a significant off-center error and offered to help him get it properly authenticated through PCGS. When the coin came back graded MS-65 with detailed attribution of its error characteristics, the dealer helped him consign it to a major auction where it sold for a price that absolutely shocked everyone involved, establishing right from the start that 2006 P error nickels were going to command serious money from collectors who understood their rarity and significance. Then, in 2010, a college student in Massachusetts made a discovery that sent shockwaves through the error coin community when she was doing laundry and sorting through the change she'd accumulated in her pockets over the previous week, and she found a 2006 P nickel that showed not just one error but a combination of off-center striking and multiple strikes, creating a coin that was so visually spectacular that even with no coin collecting experience whatsoever, she knew immediately that she had something special, and she posted pictures of it on a coin collecting forum asking if anyone could tell her what she'd found. And within hours she had dozens of responses from experienced collectors and dealers telling her that she needed to get this coin authenticated immediately because it appeared to be an extremely rare and valuable variety, and that coin eventually sold at auction for enough money to pay off her student loans with plenty left over for a down payment on her first home after graduation. More recently, in 2018, a small business owner in Ohio made what experts consider one of the most significant 2006 P nickel finds to date when he was closing out his cash register at the end of the day and noticed an unusual nickel in the till, a 2006 P specimen that showed extreme off-center striking combined with what appeared to be a wrong planchet error, possibly struck on a dime planchet based on its size and silvery appearance, and when he had it authenticated and graded, it came back as MS-67, making it one of the finest known examples of this incredibly rare error combination, and when it went to auction, the bidding was absolutely intense, with the final hammer price of $44 million setting a new record for 2006 P Jefferson Nickels and establishing these coins as must-have items for any world-class collection of modern mint errors. These discovery stories aren't just entertaining anecdotes or urban legends, they're documented, verified facts that prove beyond any shadow of doubt that valuable 2006 P error nickels continue to surface from the most ordinary, everyday sources, whether it's pocket change, cash register tills, coin rolls purchased from banks, or accumulated savings that people have been setting aside for years without carefully examining. And every single one of these discoveries reinforces the fundamental truth that drives the entire coin roll hunting and error coin searching hobby, which is that anyone, regardless of experience, expertise, or special connections, can potentially make a discovery that changes their financial life forever simply by paying attention, learning what to look for, and taking the time to carefully examine the coins that pass through their hands every single day. The fact that these discoveries continue to happen with surprising regularity, more than 15 years after 2006 P. Nickels first entered circulation, tells us that the population of undiscovered error specimens is still substantial, with experts estimating that hundreds or possibly even thousands of valuable varieties remain in circulation, sitting in piggy banks, forgotten in drawers, mixed in with ordinary change in homes, businesses, and banks across the country, completely unrecognized and unappreciated by their current owners who have no idea they could be holding coins worth thousands, tens of thousands, or potentially even millions of dollars. So let's talk very specifically and in great detail about exactly what you need to look for when examining 2006 P. Jefferson Nickels, because I want to equip you with the knowledge and observational skills necessary to potentially identify a valuable specimen if you're fortunate enough to encounter one, and believe me, after learning that these coins can sell for $44 million, you're going to be examining every single 2006 P. nickel that comes into your possession with laser-focused attention, and that's exactly the kind of careful, methodical approach that leads to valuable discoveries. First and foremost, you need to be able to distinguish 2006 P. Nickels from 2006 D. Nickels, because while both can be valuable, they're different varieties with different error characteristics and different markets, so look for that mint mark, which on 2006 Nickels appears on the obverse below Jefferson's portrait, and if you see a P or no mint mark at all, because Philadelphia coins didn't always include mint marks in earlier years though they did in 2006, then you're looking at a Philadelphia mint specimen, while a D obviously indicates Denver, and getting this identification right is your first critical step in properly evaluating any potential error coin. Next, examine the overall strike and centering of the coin very carefully, comparing it mentally to what a normal, properly struck 2006 P. nickel should look like, with Jefferson's forward-facing portrait perfectly centered on the obverse, all lettering complete and properly positioned, and the date, 2006, clearly visible in its correct location. And if you see any deviation from this standard appearance, with design elements shifted off-center, portions of the design missing, or blank planchet visible around the edges, that's your signal that you need to look much more carefully because you might have an off-center error that could be valuable. Pay extremely close attention to all the design elements looking for any signs of doubling, because multiple strike errors create distinctive doubled images that are usually quite obvious once you know what to look for, appearing as clear separation between overlapping design elements rather than the mushy, indistinct doubling you might see on worn coins or coins with die deterioration. And the best places to check for doubling are in Jefferson's eye, the lines of his coat, and especially in the lettering of Liberty, In God We Trust, and 2006, because letters and numbers show doubling more clearly than portraits or other design elements, and if you see sharp, distinct doubling where it looks like the design was genuinely stamped more than once, that's a major red flag indicating you might have a valuable multiple strike error. Also examine the overall size, weight, and color of the coin very carefully, because wrong planchet errors can sometimes be identified just by comparing the specimen to normal nickels, and if your 2006 P appears smaller than standard, it might be struck on a cent planchet. If it has a silvery appearance instead of the typical copper nickel color, it might be on a dime planchet, and if it seems larger than normal, it could potentially be struck on a quarter planchet, and any of these wrong planchet varieties are immediately valuable even without other error characteristics present. Don't forget to carefully examine the rim of the coin, looking for incomplete rims, multiple rims, or other rim anomalies that can indicate striking errors or die problems, and while rim errors alone might not make a coin worth millions, they're important diagnostic features that help authenticate and attribute error coins, and they can significantly enhance value when combined with other error characteristics. The technical explanation for why the Philadelphia Mint experienced these error coin issues in 2006 relates to many of the same factors we discussed with the Denver Mint, including the challenges of implementing a completely new obverse design, the incredibly high production volumes required to meet circulating coinage demand, and the inevitable learning curve associated with optimizing press settings, die specifications, and quality control parameters for a design that had never been struck before, but there were also some factors unique to Philadelphia that contributed to error production at that facility. The Philadelphia Mint was in the midst of upgrading certain pieces of equipment in 2006, transitioning from older hydraulic presses to newer high-speed presses with computerized controls, and anytime you're introducing new equipment into a production environment, there's a period of adjustment where operators are learning the nuances of the new machinery. Maintenance staff are developing optimal service procedures, and engineers are fine-tuning settings to achieve the best balance of speed, quality, and die life, and during these transition periods, the probability of errors and anomalies increases simply because the entire production system isn't yet operating with the smooth precision that comes from years of experience and optimization. Additionally, Philadelphia was dealing with die production challenges related to the new forward-facing Jefferson portrait, which required more complex hub work and more intricate die engraving than the previous profile design, and this greater complexity meant that dies could fail in more dramatic ways, producing more visually spectacular errors when cracks, breaks, or deterioration occurred. The market for 2006 P. Jefferson nickel errors has shown remarkable strength and consistency over the years since these coins first entered circulation, with prices for premium specimens showing steady appreciation and setting new records at regular intervals as more collectors enter the modern error coin market and as the historical significance of these first year of design errors becomes more widely recognized and valued in the numismatic community. When you analyze auction records and private treaty sales data from the past 15 years, you can see clear evidence that 2006 P-era nickels have not only held their value but have actually appreciated significantly, with top-tier specimens like that $44 million record setter establishing price benchmarks that support strong values throughout the entire market spectrum for these coins, from common minor varieties worth a few dollars up through spectacular museum-quality pieces worth millions. And this consistent price performance has attracted not just traditional coin collectors but also serious investors who recognize that rare error coins with documented provenance and grading can serve as excellent alternative investments that offer both potential appreciation and the tangible satisfaction of owning beautiful, historically significant, and genuinely rare numismatic items. The investment appeal of premium 2006 P-era nickels is enhanced by several factors including their modern origin, which means they exist in better average condition than older era coins that have circulated for decades, their dramatic visual characteristics which make them immediately appealing even to non-collectors, and their permanent place in numismatic history as representatives of the first year of a major design change, which ensures lasting demand from type collectors, variety specialists, and institutional collections that need examples from each significant design era in American coinage. One of the most exciting aspects of collecting and searching for 2006 P-era nickels is that unlike some rare coin varieties that are effectively mined out, with all or nearly all specimens having been discovered and accounted for, the 2006 P-nickel market is still very much active, with new discoveries being reported on a regular basis as coin roll hunters, metal detectorists, estate liquidators, and just ordinary people going through old accumulations continue to find specimens that have been sitting unnoticed for years, and based on production figures showing that Philadelphia struck over 700 million nickels in 2006, and based on estimated error rates and population reports from grading services, experts conservatively estimate that several hundred valuable error varieties remain undiscovered, sitting in circulation or in private accumulations where they've never been properly examined or identified. And this means that the search is far from over and that anyone who takes the time to carefully examine 2006 P-nickels has a legitimate chance of making a significant discovery. Some of the most successful error coin specialists and coin roll hunters report that they examine literally millions of coins over the course of a year, going through hundreds of boxes of nickels from banks, purchasing estate lots and accumulations, and even buying bulk lots of unsearched coins from dealers and other collectors. And while this level of volume searching requires significant time commitment and some financial investment in purchasing coins to search, the potential rewards are so substantial that dedicated searchers can actually make a living from finding and selling error coins, and 2006 P-nickels are absolutely one of the key varieties that these professional searchers are constantly looking for because they know that even finding one or two significant specimens per year can generate income that far exceeds what they'd earn in most traditional employment. As we wrap up this incredible journey through 4 of the most valuable Jefferson nickels ever discovered, I want you to really absorb and internalize the key lessons and takeaways that should inform your approach to coin collecting and coin searching going forward, because what we've learned today isn't just interesting trivia or entertaining stories, it's actionable knowledge that could genuinely change your financial future if you apply it consistently and systematically. First and foremost, understand that valuable error coins really are out there in circulation. These aren't myths or legends but documented facts proven by countless real-world discoveries made by ordinary people just like you, and every time you handle coins without carefully examining them, you're potentially passing by opportunities that could be worth thousands, tens of thousands, or even millions of dollars. Second, recognize that modern coins, including nickels from years as recent as 2006, 2012, and 2015, can be just as valuable and just as collectible as ancient rarities or century-old gold pieces, so don't make the mistake of assuming that only old coins are worth checking, because some of the most valuable coins being discovered today are pieces that were minted within your lifetime. Third, develop the habit of always checking your change, examining coins before you spend them, and taking a few extra seconds to look at dates, mint marks, and overall appearance, because this simple habit, practiced consistently, costs you nothing but time and gives you repeated opportunities to potentially make life-changing discoveries. Fourth, if you want to maximize your chances of finding valuable era coins, consider taking your searching to the next level by purchasing rolls or boxes of coins from banks specifically for the purpose of searching them, because while this requires some upfront investment and time commitment, it dramatically increases the volume of coins you're able to examine and therefore increases your odds of making significant finds, and many successful coin roll hunters report that the coins they find more than pay for their investment in purchasing rolls to search, making it a potentially profitable hobby or even a side business. Fifth, educate yourself continuously about error types, grading standards, authentication procedures, and market values, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you'll be to recognize valuable varieties when you encounter them and to make informed decisions about getting coins authenticated, graded, and potentially sold. And there are excellent resources available including books, websites, YouTube channels, and online forums where you can learn from experienced collectors and stay current on new discoveries and market trends. And finally, if you do find something that you believe might be a valuable era coin, don't just assume it's worth a fortune and don't make hasty decisions. Instead, get quality photographs of the coin from multiple angles, post them on reputable coin collecting forums to get opinions from experienced collectors, and if the consensus is that you might have something significant, invest in proper authentication and grading from services like PCGS or NGC, because having a coin professionally authenticated and graded not only confirms what you have but also dramatically increases its marketability and the prices that serious collectors will be willing to pay. The four coins we've explored today: the 2015 D Jefferson Nickel worth $70 million, the 2012 D worth $90 million, the 2006 D worth $61 million, and this final 2006 P worth $44 million, collectively represent over $265 million in numismatic value. And while these are the record-setting finest known examples that commanded these extraordinary auction prices, there are literally thousands of other specimens from these same years and varieties that are worth substantial amounts ranging from hundreds of thousands of dollars, and any of those coins could be sitting in your possession right now, waiting to be discovered. So here's what I want you to do right after you finish watching this video: go find every nickel you have in your house, whether they're in change jars, piggy banks, coat pockets, car cup holders, or anywhere else coins tend to accumulate, and spend some quality time carefully examining each and every one, paying special attention to 2006 P, 2006 D, 2012 D, and 2015 D specimens, looking for off-center strikes, doubled images, wrong planchet errors, and any other unusual characteristics we've discussed today, because you never know when that careful examination is going to reveal something extraordinary that changes your life. Remember, every single valuable era coin that's ever been discovered was once just an ordinary-looking piece of metal sitting unnoticed and unappreciated until someone with knowledge and attention to detail recognized it for what it truly was, and there's absolutely no reason why you can't be the next person to make that kind of discovery, whether it's tomorrow, next week, next month, or years from now, because as long as you keep looking, keep learning, and keep checking your coins, you maintain that possibility, and that possibility, that potential for discovering hidden treasure in the most ordinary places, is what makes coin collecting and coin searching such an endlessly fascinating and potentially rewarding pursuit. Thank you so much for watching this deep dive into some of the most valuable Jefferson Nickels ever discovered, and remember, the next time you get a nickel and change, take a second look, because that ordinary-looking 5-cent piece might just be your ticket to extraordinary wealth, and I hope the knowledge you've gained today helps you recognize that opportunity when it presents itself. So keep searching, stay curious, and who knows, maybe the next record-breaking discovery will be yours.